Hey, deserving listeners, Deavan and Jihoon, 90 Day Fiancé, let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's see if anything interesting comes out of my face.
I'm watching the video call with Devan's mom.
Hey, baby, don't be afraid.
Too late for that.
I'm not there. I'm very bad father.
I love you.
So there's that language again of I'm a very bad father. Is that a language difference? Is he putting himself down a lot? Is he fishing for compliments? I don't know. Let's keep watching.
Just seeing my son with tubes in his face and seeing a helmet over his head, giving him oxygen. Going to the NICU and not being able to hold him was so hard.
Yeah, I've been with clients through this process before where you have a child in the NICU and the parents aren't able to be there with the child. They can only visit so often because of work or whatever. And just to watch their young child suffer and be alone and the uncertainty of whether or not the child will survive, and even if they do survive, are there going to be long-lasting effects? And yeah, I mean, parents are usually very loving and caring enough as it is, and very worried enough as it is. And then you add this on top of it, and it can really put a huge toll on one's ability to cope with anything. And for some parents, I've actually seen this become a trauma that can cause overcompensation later, where there's this perception of the child being very fragile, and there's this 100%, 110% effort to just give that child whatever that child needs, which is functional at a certain stage of life. But even after the child gets through the hard times, that can sometimes be retained, and the parents will, in essence, spoil the child maybe too much, or infantilize the child too much, or neglect their marriage too much because of their ongoing worry around the child. In this moment, though, it makes total sense that all of their attention and emotions would be focused on that young child.
Hey.
You know how to hold the baby?
Yeah, how?
Hold the head?
Hold head?
Yeah, hold the head.
Head.
Yeah.
Hey, your brother. Wow.
So I haven't seen much, if any, dysfunction yet in this family. I'm sure it's to come, otherwise y'all wouldn't have asked me to watch it. But I will point out positives. Jihoon is saying, let me hold my son. And Devan's like, do you know how to hold? And Jihoon's like, okay, how? How should it? So he's open. He is saying, yeah, I don't know. I've never had a child before. I don't even think he has a younger sibling. So he's like, how do I hold? So he's open. He's willing to take direction. That's great. We've seen other couples, I think even over this very issue on this show, who the parents don't respond well to each other. They don't take advice from each other. It's extremely important, particularly for young parents, to be open and say, you know what? I don't know everything, and I'm open to feedback. Now, maybe some of that feedback I'm going to say, not for me, but at the very least, at the beginning, you have to be open. Parents being able to say, hey, you're doing it wrong, or say it nicely of, hey, I think you could do it differently, and getting through that time so both parents can help each other. Two heads are better than one. If parents are separated and you have two individual heads, that usually means bad thing for the marriage and for parenting and for the child.
Every day. 그럴 때마다 저는 항상 아기를 너무 만지고 싶고 보고 싶었어요. 항상 아기 생각밖에 안 났어요. I'm sorry.
Why?
I'm bad father.
So there it is again. And my hypothesis are three about this. One is he has extremely low self-esteem. Two is that it's a language difference. Three is that he is fishing for compliments. And I guess the fourth is that not only a language difference, but a cultural difference of maybe cultural language difference would be in one hypothesis, that he's apologizing, but the way it translates is different than the way he's actually trying to communicate. But I'm starting to wonder, given the way that he talks, if he actually does have a kind of a black and white view of himself, that when things are going bad, he very quickly gets to this place where I'm a bad father. It's one thing to say, oh, I just feel so bad that I wasn't there, and I wish I could have been there, and I wish I could have earned more money in the past so that I could have afforded to change the ticket. I'm so sorry that it didn't work out that way. But to say, I'm a bad father, that's a pretty big statement, right? Now, again, are we misunderstanding culturally? Are we misunderstanding language? And then the third hypothesis is that he's fishing for a compliment. He feels bad and feels like he needs to have a connection with Deavan. He's worried that Deavan is upset at him. And as a way of trying to correct for that, he'll beat. It's like you feel like someone wants to beat you. Someone wants to beat you emotionally, wants to say, you did something bad. And then you just grab the whip and you start beating yourself 10 times worse. And then the person who was going to beat you says, whoa, don't go that far. And then you believe through the fantasy that you're gaining some kind of acceptance from your spouse. I don't know if that's what he's doing. I'm leaning towards the first hypothesis, that he has a black and white thinking of the self and actually does believe truly that he is a bad person in a number of different, he had the worst proposal ever given because of the clumsiness. If anything, it was a cute moment. And he's a bad father because he couldn't afford to change his ticket. He didn't know that she was going to have a complication that was going to push the C-section early. So it's not his fault that he couldn't afford it. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting that he just jumps there. Now, maybe he will be a terrible father. Let's watch.
Bad father because I'm staying in Korea. It's my guilty forever until I die.
Yeah, it's just, is he trying to just emphasize to Deavan that he really cares a lot? I think there's some level of that, some sort of histrionics around that, some sort of performative nature to it. I don't know, but I'm leaning towards the first hypothesis that when it says, so there's a schema of self-punishment that I don't often talk about because we haven't seen it very often. Maybe we can keep this in mind as we move forward. Schemas are developed early in life, maladaptive schemas, based on our experience. We don't know anything about Jihoon's early experience in life. His parents seem nice enough, but that doesn't tell us much about what his early life was like. And he exhibits signs, we don't know, we'd have to ask him, of a schema of self-punishment, meaning that when he was young, it's possible that he learned somehow that he deserved to be punished. And there's a lot of different ways to cope with that. Or I should say, one possibility is that he was being punished a lot in a very black and white way. When kids make mistakes, we generally want to say the behavior you did was not okay, but you're still a good person. But that behavior, that thing you did, let's try to change that. But some parents will take a shortcut for reasons of their own parenting when they were a kid or their own personality issues, and they will actually give a message to the child that the child is wrong, the child is bad. The child does something wrong, which kids do all the time, and the message is, you are bad. You are a bad person. You're terrible. And the child has various different ways of coping with this. One of them is to just surrender and accept that, because they're getting these messages and it's hurting their feelings, and they can either push up. So let me give you all the different ways that one could cope. Not all, but some of the main ways. One way is to push back and say, I hate everyone, and I'm going to be independent. I know that I'm a good person. In fact, I'm superior to other people, and other people can go to heck, and that's the way it is. So it's a way of protecting the self. Now, that's going to cause problems, too, because you're always pushing people away. You don't take feedback. You might be narcissistic, that kind of thing. But the opposite of that is to accept and go along with it. Well, why would you do that? Well, one, it makes things more predictable because you're like, well, if I'm a bad person, I'm being treated like I'm a bad person. At least I can predict how the world works. The other is you're internalizing the voice. The other thing is, if you're being told you're a bad person by your caregivers, by your parents, then there's a dilemma there. Because if you push back and you think, my parents are dumb, then you are kind of alone. Kids need to believe that their parents are good, that their parents are safe, that their parents can do things, that their parents know things, that their parents are right. Because kids are inherently terrified of the world because they're kids. They don't know how the world works. And they need someone to be there for them. They need a nest to return to that is safe. Well, if the nest is the one that is yelling at you and telling you that you're a stupid person, there's this dilemma because on one hand, you kind of feel like the parents are wrong. But if the parents are wrong, then you're truly alone and you have nowhere to turn, which is a very, very scary situation. So one of the ways of coping is to say, well, they are right. I just need to assume, this is all subconscious, I need to assume that they are right and they're perfect. So if they're perfect and they're telling me that I am 100% wrong, I'm a bad person, then I guess I have to accept that in order to uphold this fantasy that all children want to have, that the parents are perfect and that they can rely on them. So you internalize that voice. And then whenever there's any kind of trigger, this dilemma happens inside of the psyche, inside of the self, which is, okay, Jihoon, something bad happened. You weren't there for the birth. So on one hand, he might say, well, I don't feel like I was that wrong. But to go there when he was a kid would be to question whether or not his parents are actually safe. And so that rational debate side of the debate is actually subdued neuronally in his brain because he learned when he was 1 through 5 to not think about that because it was too scary. And so there's only one side of the story, and it's very black and white, and it is, yes, I am bad. I did something bad, I'm bad. I did something bad, I'm bad. But it's not really a mature point of view, right? And it can come across to other people like, why are you beating yourself up so much? Like, yes, you did something bad, but you don't have to hate yourself in this way. And what it denies the person is that if you believe that you're truly bad and you made that sacrifice of that perspective when you were young because of the situation you're in, then when you're just living life, you bump up against barriers and you're like, well, I'm not going to be able to succeed because I'm dumb. I'm wrong. I'm always failing. I'm a failure. I always disappoint people because I'm a bad person. I've been doing it my entire life. So why try? Why even try to succeed? Because I'm surely going to mess this up. And I'm beginning to see some elements of that. I don't know, though. Maybe this will take a turn and I won't see any more signs of this to come.
I'm really scared to move to Korea for a man that I don't know well because he hasn't proved to me yet that I can depend on him. But I really want Taeyoung to have his father in his life. So I need to do this for my son.
I will say that I will celebrate another Hapa child in the world, such as myself. Hapa is the word that we use for half Asian. It can refer to half Asian of any sort, half Asian, half black, half Asian, half white, that kind of thing. So it's always great. Whenever I see other Hapa people in the world, I say, I see the Asian parent and the white parent, or the Asian parent and the black parent. I'm like, another one of our race, the Hapa race, will take over the world.
You, Taeyang, and Drusilla? No. I gotta make money, a lot of money. My financial situation is very not good because when I was young, my credit card. So, yeah, I up.
Okay, so we're learning a little bit about his history, and he says he just quit his job. He hasn't explained exactly why. Devan's like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you quit your job? He's also talking about that he's in a lot of credit card debt, and he's saying that he effed up. So let's keep watching and see how he navigates that. I think usually on this show, they focus on the conflict where Devan's saying, you're a loser, and he's like, no, I'm not. Although he might say, yes, I am a loser. Instead of trying to really get into the details of career development, of financial management, it can be very difficult for people. And I don't know what the job market is like in Seoul for his skill set, but that's another thing to think about. But I'm guessing this show won't go into those details, and we'll just see the conflicts and not really know the landscape. Because sometimes I'm wondering, like with Tiffany and Ronald, for example, I don't know what it's like in South Africa. And their entire conflict seems to, at least on the show, seems to be based on this issue of he's a loser and a deadbeat, he doesn't earn money, and they will fight about that. But I'm always wondering, how easy is it for him to get a job? How much does it pay? Is it realistic? Like, what's the economy like? And if the economy's doing well and there's a lot of jobs available to him, or he has squandered many years without getting any sort of skill set for a career, then okay, you could criticize him, I suppose. But on the other hand, is the economy bad? Is the economy different than it is in the United States? All those kinds of things. Particularly when people come to the States and they're expected to get a job right away. That's a whole other silliness and accusation. But the other thing that I am often wondering with people like Ronald and other people that are on the show that struggle with their career is what's going on, why? There's always this assumption that they're a deadbeat and that they're lazy. That is almost never the case, by the way. Everyone that looks quote-unquote lazy or is accused of being lazy, in my experience, there's always some sort of barrier. Everyone wants to be productive. Everyone wants to be successful. And what is getting in the way of their wants with their reality? Are they misinformed? Do they have self-esteem issues? Is the economy bad? Do they not have access to a training program? Or are they socially anxious? Are they depressed? There are a lot of reasons, what I would consider legitimate reasons as to why someone's career would flounder other than you're a lazy person.
I am worried because you quit your job. To be honest, I'm extremely pissed off. As much as this makes me want to cancel my plans, I can't. I already quit my job. I already sold everything. So it's just not an option.
Okay, so we're seeing another typical presentation. I didn't think Jihoon was going to be this way, but he seems to be this way in that he is behaving like a typical misogynist or sexist man, I should say, where he doesn't consult. He doesn't let her in on the decision making. There's this notion that men are supposed to be financially well off, or they're supposed to provide, and they're supposed to do it on their own, and they're not supposed to involve their spouses or anyone else in their decision making process, because to do that is to express dependency and neediness, and men are socialized not to do that. I don't know if Jihoon or Korean culture is guilty of that. I don't know. But he is doing that. It looks like that. He quit his job. He didn't tell her beforehand. And then she's like, I'm worried. And he's like, don't worry. Why would she not be worried? She should be. The two of you are unemployed. She's moving to another country for the rest of her life. And you don't have any income stream. So she should be worried. And again, on this show, I'm always like, if I were there, I'd be, okay, you're both worried. That's fine. Let's talk about it. What questions do you have? What's the plan? What's the short-term plan? What's the long-term plan? Instead of just yelling at each other, which actually can create problems such that the Jihoons of the world won't actually take action. They'll be bogged down in the conflict or trying to put up smoke screens to avoid being shamed. So I'm worried that might develop. But I don't know. Maybe he'll get a job and everything will be fine.
A full 9 months to prepare, and he didn't. This is what I'm concerned about because you did quit your job. Are we going to be able to afford an apartment?
You, without worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
See, there's that message. Now, maybe he has a huge savings. He just got done telling us that he has all this credit card debt. Or maybe he has this job lined up or something and he's saying, don't worry. But again, if I were there, I'd be like, okay, you're telling her not to worry. But she would be stupid to believe you because she doesn't know you. So you're going to have to demonstrate why she should not worry. You're going to have to tell her, don't worry because of these 5 bullet points. Just telling someone not to worry doesn't stop them from worrying. It just usually silences them.
Your future, be bright. Heaven.
I hope so. That's all I can say.
Trust me.
Okay.
You just
I'm sick of hearing trust me. I need it to happen at this point.
Daniel, go this way.
This way?
Yes.
Right. So she is rational in saying, I'm sick of hearing that. I'm sick of hearing, trust me. I'm sick of hearing everything will work out. Don't worry. I'm guessing that Jihoon hasn't provided any evidence. If he provided evidence, he'd be like, and even if he didn't have something lined up, he could say, look, honey, I am 100% dedicated to getting a job. I am good at interviewing. I know some people. I have a lot of work to do to figure that out. In fact, I was just on the phone earlier today with someone, and I have a whole budget plan where I want to earn this amount, and this job generally does earn this amount, and then typically rent. Yeah. So if he had some demonstration of a plan, I'm guessing that Deavan wouldn't be as upset when he says, trust me, don't worry. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.